Hello and welcome to Global Market Bulletin TV. Today, we'd like to welcome Dr. Bob Hariri, Chairperson, Founder, and CEO of Celularity. Your company is traded under the NASDAQ symbol CELU. We want to thank you so much for joining us.
Lila, thank you so much for having me.
Well, please introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about Celularity's work in the next evolution of cellular medicine.
Well, my name is Dr. Bob Hariri, as you mentioned. I have, for the last 30 years, been working to turn living cells into medicines. Since the dawn of the technology that revolved around the discovery of stem cells and the potential for stem cells to impact how we treat diseases, my focus has been, how do you reduce this to a practical, deliverable solution to treat a variety of diseases? You may remember at the dawn of this field, when it was first discovered that you could isolate these unique cells that have the ability to divide and mature into virtually any specialized cell type of the body, that the hope was that we could turn back on certain regenerative activities that would treat diseases, fix damaged hearts, fix the brain after a stroke, fix bones after they've been broken. And what we've learned in 30 years is that it's a much more complicated biological process, and that these living cells actually act to restore function, repair damage, and improve immunity, which is perhaps one of the most important roles they can play. And so at Celularity, our claim has always been that our discovery that the leftovers of a full-term healthy pregnancy, the placenta, which, as you know, is discarded as waste after birth, could in fact be the ideal source of cells for this field. And that's for many reasons. It's an abundantly available raw material. It can be subjected to very rigorous quality controls, and it is a highly scalable, economical raw material to produce cells for immunotherapy, for example, to treat cancer, but also for this very rapidly emerging field of regenerative applications. And you probably hear a lot about it in terms of the future of longevity in the world.
Yes, indeed. And truly fascinating stuff. Now, let's learn a little bit more about the vision behind Celularity and how you're positioning the company to meet the evolving needs of the allogeneic cell therapy industry. You recently announced that the company would present data showing senescent cell elimination by off-the-shelf natural killer cells derived from those human placental cells that you had mentioned at the ASGCT annual meeting. Now, is there anything that you can share with us ahead of this presentation in regards to what investors can plan to look for or learn from the data?
Absolutely. So Celularity, again, because we pioneered the use of the placenta as a source of these cells, over the last 2 decades, we have developed these into a number of therapeutic tools to treat a range of diseases. One of the things we know is that we can use them to augment or boost the function of our immune system, which is our critical component of our overall physiology that is responsible for protecting us from threats and simultaneously stimulating the process of repair and regeneration. Now, the process is somewhat complicated. We all start out as a single cell. That single cell gives rise to trillions and trillions of cells during our lifetime, and these cells are continually renovating and renewing us over time. The integrity of those cells, the quality of those cells, ultimately dictates our health. And so one of the functions that we recognized had tremendous potential clinically was to use an element of the immune system found in the placenta in a type of cell called a natural killer cell, which is designed by nature to be our first line of defense against the most common threats to survival. And so, for example, natural killer cells protect us from viral infections, natural killer cells protect us from cancer, and natural killer cells are also the tool that cleans us up during our lifetime, eliminating the dead, dying, and dysfunctional cells that we call senescent. So if you don't mind, I'll explain that.
Please.
So as cells divide and mature, they go through a complicated process where they're called upon to synthesize different products of the genetic information that's encoded in every cell, and they also have to give rise to new cells to replace them. At some point, some cells go through a process where they stop dividing, and they actually take on what we know as a senescent phenotype. It's called a senescence-associated secretory phenotype. What that means is it takes on a role which is abnormal. It releases toxic chemicals. Those chemicals are very pro-inflammatory. They stimulate the bad side effects of inflammation. They also can promote tumor growth. So it's now well recognized in medicine that one of the important roles in immunotherapy is to help the body prune itself. For anybody who grows roses in their garden or has fruit trees, they know every season you've got to prune that agricultural production system. And the way you do it is by eliminating some of the terminal, dying, abnormal branches or leaves or whatnot. The same thing happens in us. When cells become senescent, our immune system is responsible for getting rid of those senescent cells to first of all, clean up the production of those pro-inflammatory molecules, but also to make room for replacement by healthy new cells. And so we are at Celularity have spent many years studying this remarkable system of natural killer cells. We've actually taken that product into the clinic to treat cancer, to treat viral infection. In fact, Celularity had the first FDA approved IND to use these natural killer cells to treat COVID. And we actually treated COVID patients this way. And what we have found is that this may be one of the most powerful tools to help us age in a much healthier way. And so as I've been saying for many, many years here at Celularity, the biology of aging, the biology of cancer, and the biology of most degenerative diseases are the same biology. And natural killer cells are the one tool that addresses that fundamental process that is common to all those three areas.
Fascinating stuff. You had also announced that the U.S. Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services granted a healthcare common procedure coding system, Q code, for Biovance 3L. It's a tri-layer allograft derived from placental tissue intended for use as a biological membrane covering barrier or wrap that acts as a scaffold for restoration of functional tissue in partial and full thickness, acute and chronic wounds. Now, the company identified that the nationally established Q code will further support the use of Biovance 3L by physicians to treat wound care patients in office settings. So what can you tell us about this and the Biovance business as a whole for this year?
So one of the things that makes Celularity very unique in the cellular medicine and regenerative medicine industries is that because of our platform of technology using this leftover placenta after completion of a healthy pregnancy, we've actually created a bifurcated approach to the industrialization. And what I mean by that is, think about what we do, sort of analogous to the refinery business. The raw material, the crude oil, the placenta, under a very, very well-controlled program of procurement, gets to our laboratories. And in our laboratories, we separate the cellular elements of the organ from the tissue elements. And for over 20 years, we have been able to turn the tissue elements into products that are 100% normal human tissue, but in a form that can be stored for a long time and without any immunologic risk when administered clinically. Biovance was the first platform of technology in the tissue part of our business, which we developed, which is we take the amniotic membrane, the sac that the developing fetus is developed within, is a remarkable tissue that we harvest, we remove the cells, We dehydrate it so that it has a long shelf life, sterilize it, and make it available as a surgical appliance, like a sheet of biological fabric that can be used as a tissue repair template. Now, as we've advanced that product portfolio, we've created laminated versions of this tissue, which are extremely valuable in treating wounds and in many other applications in orthopedics and potentially even in aesthetics. And so receiving the Q code made this a far easier for physicians to employ product in the general scheme of delivering healthcare. And it's in many ways, it's a kind of a testimonial to the importance of the product in wound healing. We're very excited about it. Biovance 3L is an exceptionally well-received product. It's gaining in popularity and growing, and we see it as a cornerstone of our overall strategy to continue to develop and innovate in the placental-derived biomaterials business and offer our physicians a range of surgical appliances to use to repair defects, to support tissues that are damaged, and even in the future, we hope to be able to use these to deliver cells, kind of as a vehicle for delivering cell therapy.
Technology is really incredible. Let's look into the pipeline a bit now. In late March, the company submitted your request to the FDA for orphan drug designation for PDA 002 for treating, and forgive me if I'm not pronouncing this correctly, but facioscapulohumeral muscular dystrophy, or FSHD. You previously received clearance from the FDA, IND clearance from the FDA. Can you tell us a bit more about the plans to begin phase 1, 2 in 2024 with off-the-shelf placental-derived cell therapy?
Absolutely. And by the way, Leila, you nailed that pronunciation. So the fact is, FSHD is a form of muscular dystrophy that attacks very specific muscles in the body, and it occurs in adults and slowly diminishes their ability to control a very important set of their force-generating muscle. It's debilitating. It's considered a chronic illness. And we learned many, many years ago that muscle is a critically important tissue in our bodies for lots of reasons. The obvious ones, being able to have mobility and so on and so forth, but muscle is also a very important reservoir of cells from the immune system. Muscle is also a very, very important metabolic tissue. It's where we burn all of our glucose. And muscle is a very, very important synthetic organ. But in FSHD, this unique form of muscular dystrophy, we found that because of experience in our clinical trials using these same placental cells to treat non-healing wounds, diabetic foot ulcers, we found that we could actually build muscle tissue. And so we took this into the laboratory and demonstrated in a variety of preclinical models that placental-derived stem cells, when injected into muscle tissue, promote the growth and expansion of healthy muscle tissue. Now, that has lots of potential, but in this particular orphan indication, where the Food and Drug Administration provides tremendous support in helping to accelerate and advance those programs through to registration, we see this as a perfect icebreaker, if you will, to allow us to begin to use cellular medicine to address muscle loss that's associated with more common conditions, like, for example, age-related frailty, a condition called sarcopenia. And by the way, age-related frailty and sarcopenia are present in virtually everybody as their age advances. It is a slow, degenerative process, but we all know as we get older, we lose our strength. And what I've always said for many, many years is the four cornerstones of healthy aging are the preservation of high-performance mobility, high-performance cognition, high-performance immunity, and youthful aesthetics. And I'm very excited because the technologies at Celularity address all of those issues.
Wow. Lots of applications, really quite incredible. You had also recently presented at the Abundance Summit and Society for Brain Mapping and Therapeutics, or SBMT, their annual World Congress. So what can you tell us about those presentations and your overall passion for immunotherapy and longevity in our world today.
Well, Leila, I was trained clinically as a surgeon. I have an MD and a PhD, and my passion has always been addressing some of the hardest challenges in healthcare. That's why I focused on head and spinal cord injury in my academic medical career. When it came to understanding what I could potentially offer clinically, it became apparent to me that one of the most important targets is the immune system. And at SBMT's conference, and at Abundance 360, I was able to share with the audience the vision for using living cellular products in order to drive the integrity and performance of the immune system as a way to ensure we have the best defenses against disease, we have the best surveillance system against things like cancer, infectious diseases, and so on, and we have the best repair system to get us back to high levels of function in response to injury, disease, you name it. What I was really excited in these two different fora was that the audience appreciated that cellular medicine's come a long way. I'm an old timer in this field, Layla. I've been doing this for about 30 years. When I first envisioned that at some point we'd be able to use the power of stem cells to fix the brain after traumatic brain injuries. But today we now know that it's a much more intuitively logical way to address disease. What we're basically doing is we're using nature's toolkit to repair and replace things that are unfortunately working abnormally, either because of an acute or even a chronic illness. Now, Celularity is a unique company because our range of technologies, and as a company that's been around for some time, we actually were a division of Celgene Corporation, one of the most successful biotech companies in history. And when we spun out of Celgene as the one and only spinoff, that's by the way, why the name Celularity has the same prefix CEL to Celgene, CEL. When we spun out, we realized that we have such a wide array of opportunities to play in that we wanted to focus on mechanisms. It's one of the reasons why we were talking about senolytic and senoablative therapy, because it's a common mechanism to many different disease processes. At the SBMT and the Abundance meeting, I was specifically talking about the fact that in our toolkit today, we have regenerative biomaterials like Biovance, which you mentioned. We have pluripotent placental stem cells like PDA002, which can drive repair and control abnormal immune functions. And we have natural killer cells, which can help prune the body of the old senescent defective cells. When you put this all together, it is an opportunity to use a natural biological cadence to address many of the diseases that we face. And so I believe the future of cellular medicine, and clearly the future of regenerative medicine, is going to be to deploy these products in a cadence where we eliminate the problems, we patch the holes, and then we regenerate the tissues. And fortunately, at Celularity, we have all of the platforms to operate in that space.
Incredible. And this is all happening in our lifetime, which is quite amazing. But I do want to switch gears just a little bit, talk some dollars and cents. The most recent Celularity news showed that the net sales were trending ahead of expectations for first quarter 2024, and that the company expects the first quarter of 2024 to be the fourth consecutive quarter of both sequential and quarter-on-quarter net sales growth. So can you tell us a bit more about what this news means for financial health and upcoming company growth?
Layla, for anybody who watches the biotechnology industry in general and the cellular medicine sector specifically, they know the last 24 months have been hard times. It's been a very challenging environment for corporate valuations. It's been a very challenging environment for financings, in large part because global economic conditions and regulatory uncertainty about the pathway to get approvals and commercialization put a lot of pressure on companies in the field. Now, Celularity, as I mentioned before, is unique because unlike a traditional cellular medicine company, we have a revenue-generating part of our business around the biomaterials. It all comes from the same industrial process as I alluded to before. That assembly line, that industrialization of cellular medicine means that from the same source material, we have multiple derivatives. We've been successful in navigating towards taking the biomaterial side of that industrialization and turning it into revenue-generating products. Now, as a company that's suffered, unfortunate changes in our valuation from our health, soon after we went public, our valuation ticked up to close to $2 billion. But as valuations became challenged, we sought to create a greater level of independence from financings to maintain our operations, and so we worked on building our revenue-generating business. The report that our first quarter is trending ahead of forecast, to me, is a sign of great promise for the future. Now. Part of my responsibility here at Celularity, and part of my responsibility when I was at Celgene was to focus on what the high probability opportunities were, and to execute on that business plan. So I'm very happy to say the team here at Celularity is executing on the biomaterials part of our business. I'm very optimistic. At the beginning of the year, we estimated that we would do between $50 to $56 million of revenue. I'm very hopeful that we can push those numbers aggressively. We've also got a number of other important advances going on in the laboratory and from our research teams. And so I'm optimistic that 2024 is going to be a transformational year for the company. And I'm very optimistic that 2025 is going to be not only transformational for our company, but for the industry in general.
Incredible. This has been so informative, so enlightening, Dr. Hariri. I want to thank you so much for joining us. And for people who want to know more information about your company, where should they go?
Well, I'd love them to visit our website, which is www.cellularity, CELULARITY.com. And obviously, they can follow us in all of the public company press under the ticker symbol CELU. And as an aviator, that's Charlie Echo Lima uniform. And we're excited for people to pay a little bit of attention to what we think is going to be a transformational business in cellular and regenerative medicine.
No doubt in my mind. Dr. Hariri, thank you so much. And we look forward to monitoring your success in the future and hope that we can meet up with you again very soon. Thank you.
Thank you. And might I add one more thing? If anyone is interested in learning more about the field in general, the book over my shoulder here, A Life Force, which I authored with Tony Robbins and Peter Diamandis, is an encyclopedia of what we've been talking about, and it gives some really, really important information that I think will help people navigate their health going forward.
Wherever books are sold?
Wherever books are sold.
Perfect. All right, Dr. Hariri, thank you again.
Thank you so much, Layla.